Hello there. It's Lit Book Reviews here for yet another. I am Kimbo Slice. With me, rest in peace me. With me is Jorge Masvidal. And we're excited to do another one here today. How you doing today?
Died.
Andy?
I'm doing good,
Kimbo
man.
did not. Kimbo died, not Jorge.
Oh, yeah, I figured. Young Kimbo. Doing well, man. I'm doing well. Been reading all day. It's been a good day. January 1.
January 1, here we are.
Start of a new beginning.
Yes, indeed. So to start off the year, we're going to go ahead and get everything from last year done. This is probably the last video we'll do covering our 2023 reads. So we are going to tier list all of our nonfiction reads from 2023. And I'm pretty excited, man. We got 21 books between us. Most of these we did not read together, so it'll be kind of a conglomeration of our thoughts on that. So we're going to do our tier list starting now. And we're going to, I guess we'd say S tier is like the best of the best, perfect. A is great, B is good, C is all right, D is just did not do it for us.
Not it.
All right, cool. So starting off, we're going to hit Band of Brothers. Now, this is a book that I read. It's very popular. There's an HBO miniseries on this book. And, it's an A. It's an A for sure. It's a great book. It's not S tier to me. The show makes it like even better, but as a book, I wouldn't say it's S tier. It's not Ambrose's best as far as the stuff that I've read from him, so I'm going to put that at A tier. Now, the show, as far as shows goes and miniseries go...
You think it's S tier?
The show might be S tier, honestly. Show's so good.
I've seen the show.
Did you like it too?
It's good. Oh, yeah. It's great.
Nice.
I love it.
Yes, indeed. So up next for me is Collapse by Jared Diamond. Now, this is book 2 in his, Societies series. The first one is Guns, Germs, and Steel, so this is the follow-up to that. It's not really necessarily like a proper follow-up. It's just kind of a series he did, but this one definitely at least gets an A. It's honestly almost an S, so I think it's above Band of Brothers, to be honest.
Wow.
It's just really good, man. It's just a very well-researched, very, very good book. Jared Diamond's really great, so yeah, I'm going to throw that in the A tier. Next up, we got this Frederick Douglass biography by David W. Blight. This is a very good book about a very profound figure in history, but it is just way too much. It's like a 900-page book, and it's extremely dense. And just, like most biographies are dense, and they give you some details that sometimes maybe you wouldn't care for, but this gives you, like there are sometimes in this book many biographies on other people that he comes across in his life, and it's just too much, man. So it's a great book. Or I shouldn't say great. It's a very good book. It's well researched, but it was just too much for me, so it is going to be a B on my list.
Is that low B, you think, or
it's probably going to end up being low B or mid B.
Okay.
We'll see how it stacks up, but right now it was just too much, man. It's you can tell the guy knows his stuff. The author's extremely well researched. And Frederick Douglass lived a fascinating life, so there's really, really engaging parts, but there was it took me a long time to read this, and there were just a lot of times where I was just kind of dragging a bit getting through this. And I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 still, but it's a low 4. So next up is Abyss by Max Hastings. I've not read this. This one's you, bruv.
This was a good book. It's not that long. Again, it's about the Cuban Missile Crisis era, so it follows Kennedy and kind of the fall of the USSR and the Cold War. Does some Cuba stuff with Castro, so it has a kind of the 3 different windows, and it plays back and forth. I would say it's high B. I don't think I could give this an A.
Okay.
It's still really good.
Yeah.
And again, I don't, like we did with our last video, I don't really know why. It's just more of a feeling. It's a good book. It's a kind of a somewhat quick read on this time period. But it's not anything that I'm like, oh my God, I'm reading this book again. I don't know. It just was a really good book that I'm glad I read. But it didn't drag on. It doesn't have I guess some of the negatives that the Douglass has for you. It's more just, it's just good.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Yeah. No, I feel that. That's a fair B. Okay, so next up is Hero of the Empire. This is about a young Winston Churchill during the Boer War, written by Candace Millard, who has actually written one of my favorite books of all time called Destiny of the Republic about James Garfield. And I've read a few of her other books. This is the weakest of hers for me, so I'm going to give it a C. It's just not like, for one, it's not that interesting. No. It's just about him during the Boer War, and he really had like a kind of a, I mean, there's a cool story in it, and to be honest, I can't remember a ton of it, because this book just didn't like, it just never really, I never really got into it. Like, I finished it, I wanted to know what happened, I really like Candace Millard, so I kept the faith through the end, but it's just not up to par with her other stuff, in my opinion. So yeah, of the 4 books I've read by her, this would be number 4, and it's going to be a C. It's not a D, it's not like bad, it's not getting towards bad, but it's, you know, it's right in the middle there for me-ish. A little lower than the middle. So it's a C. Next up, we have A Man of Iron by Troy Sinnott. This is about Grover Cleveland, who served 2 non-consecutive terms as the President of the United States. And this was a really good book, man. This one's going to be an A for me. I'll still put it underneath these other 2, make it like a mid-A. But this is a short book. It was only like 315, I feel like. Didn't take long at all to read, but it was just so good, man. There's not a lot out there about Grover Cleveland. And if there's anything I love when it comes to history, it's reading something that I don't know anything about. And this was just a really succinct, like I said, not very dense, not long book that just kind of goes over his life and his presidencies, plural. And so, yeah, I'm going to give that one an A.
Cover that book.
Yeah, it's a really good cover. I mean, A Man of Iron. The whole idea behind this book is this author kind of makes a point that, look, that not a lot of crazy, wild stuff happened during Grover Cleveland's presidency. Nothing that's like got a major impact on politics today or really even outside of his presidencies, but he remained who he was like throughout his entire political career. Like he stuck to his guns. What he said he was going to do, he did. Like he just didn't go back on his word. He just had a lot of integrity. And so if you had stuck this guy with his integrity in the World War I era, you know, I think he would have done a great job. If you stuck him in the Civil War era, he probably would have done a great job. So, you know, just didn't have a lot come his way, but still a very good book. Next up is David McCullough, his John Adams biography. Now, I've said this before on the channel, and I'll say it again. This is a book that is near and dear to the heart of It's Lit Book Reviews because it is the subject matter, half of the subject matter for our very first episode we ever did. And this is a great book. I mean, this is a Pulitzer Prize winner. It's an S tier. It's honestly kind of flawless. This book, David McCullough is a god.
Is it McCullough or McCullough?
I always say McCullough. It could be McCullough.
Okay.
By all means, I could be
I've
wrong.
literally never read any of his books, so I don't.
I mean, I've literally never been right about anything, so it's probably not McCullough, if I'm being honest.
I mean, because it's OUGH, right?
Yeah, and I mean, that could be McCullough, but I know people who have that at the end, and it's UF.
Sorry, I don't even know why I brought it. It just was like...
Honestly, dude, it probably is David McCullough. Like, I've probably been saying it wrong forever.
Well, it's been very subtle. Like, when you say it, I've thought... I can't remember when it was. Maybe it was when we were filming with Nathan. I heard you say... I thought you said... But it's, you know, it's so, like, slight.
David McCullough. I just barely do it at the end there.
Yeah, it's such a little tease. Anyway, I can't wait to have him on, and we can kind of figure out what that is. So shout out, David.
Shout out, David. Great book you wrote. S tier for John Adams. Next up is Colditz.
How's the show? Sorry to bring that back.
No. Great point. Another one that has a great miniseries. There's actually both HBO miniseries, so you can check them out. Both on Max now, it's called. But the John Adams miniseries is amazing. I was in tears at several different points. Now, I had read the book, so I think it was a little more near and dear for me. Because I had a much better understanding of what was going on in the context. So I don't know if everyone would really love it, but if you're into history at all and you like those kinds of miniseries, I think this is a great one. It's more political drama.
Is it S-tier, you think?
I wouldn't give it S tier. I think, like, for me, maybe I could see myself in a biased way giving it S tier just because I love the book, but I don't think it's as good as, say, Band of Brothers. So no.
Yeah.
But yeah, good bringing that up because it is still great. Next up is Colditz by Ben McIntyre. This one's you. I did not read this.
This was a fun book that I read in maybe 2 settings. It's one of those books that's like very thick. The pages are super thick, so you read like 50 pages and you're like, it looks like you're
just covering this much.
I mean, yeah, dude, it makes you feel like you're really good at reading. So I remember I read this like while I was traveling a bit, and I mean, I liked it. It was fun. I couldn't put it. It's low B, high C. I don't have any. There's nothing wrong with the book. It's just it covers a very specific incident in history, and it's just really hard for me to. I don't want to say care, but it follows this army like official, or where during World War II, it's where they sent like French, American, anyone against the Nazi military who'd been captured, like higher ups, they get sent to Colditz. And it's kind of an interesting look at the leaders who were there were German military and not necessarily like Nazi sympathizers. So they had to kind of do what they had to do. But I mean, it's just an interesting dynamic. But as far as like the importance of the book, it's just such a small blip and it's so short. Yeah. It's fun, and I would definitely like recommend it as like an easy, quick like nonfiction read. Yeah. But like, I hate to say it, but it just doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. It's like a cool, fascinating story, but like Abyss like is just about something that like was one of the tensest moments of all time that could have led to something huge. So it's just, I don't know. I couldn't put it more than a low B, and I don't know. We may have to come back to it and see, because it may be high C. It's still a good book. It's just it's kind of more fun.
This has only been McIntyre we have. Or wait, is my other one down here Ben McIntyre?
Is it that one?
I'm gonna have to
the one about Russia
and
the spy?
Yeah.
I think that's that red one there.
Yeah, it is. But either way, what I was gonna say is Ben McIntyre for me is just kind of a B level. Like, he's a good author. But
he's like
just
a great value Eric Larson, and that's no shot to Ben McIntyre, but like, just Eric Larson's writing style is so much more engaging, and this book was still good. Again, I'm not saying this book's not good. It's just like he's a poor man's Eric Larson, and that's fine. Right? Like, because Eric Larson's, he has some S tier books. So
yeah, I would agree.
But yeah, that's how I feel about the same. It's he finds these fun stories that are cool, but it's just the way he goes back and forth is not like how Eric Larson does, and that's the only person I really have to like relate him to. So.
Yeah, and this one actually is Ben McIntyre, so I'll just go ahead and do it since we're on the subject of him. Bro, I did not like this book at all. This is actually a D for me. This is my least. I've read 4 or 5. It's A Spy Amongst Friends. It's about Kim Philby, who was a CIA operative.
He's like an investor. Oh, never mind. Okay.
He's a CIA guy that was just selling secrets to the Russians and ended up, eventually defecting there. But he was just really high up, and he was. I mean, it's a crazy story. I could not even remotely get engaged in this book. I don't know what it was, dude, but I was just kind of making myself finish it. But it's an interesting story because he essentially gets put in charge of the investigation to find himself. Like, the specific mole, like, the stuff he's doing, like, they end up discovering the specific things he's doing. They just don't know who it is. And he gets put in charge of the investigation to find out who that mole is, and it's him the whole time. So it is. He's like, yeah, I can do it, bro. I got it for sure, dude. I'm gonna catch him immediately.
Do you think if Eric Larson was given the source material, he would have done a better job?
Yeah, there's something about Ben McIntyre's writing that's either really fun or it's just I just can't get into it, man. I like have a trouble buying into the story. I don't know what it is, man. I'm not a writer, so I couldn't do better. But it's just it has to be that with subject matter that's so interesting. Yeah, it's just it has to be that. So. That's our first D tier on the list, A Spy Amongst Friends.
That almost friends. I mean, I'll probably end up putting it high C after that.
No, I mean, that's fair. Next up is Genghis Khan in the Making of the Modern World by Jack Weatherford. Now, I will say I audibled about 70-75% of this book, and it was good. It was really informative, and I think it was better. Yeah, it's gonna have to be a C for me, man. This one it's really good, but I don't know. A lot of it's conjecture. I talked about it. We have a review on this.
I was literally just about to say that. I was literally just about to say conjecture just makes, to me, that's why ancient history is tough, and I think that's what you're about to say.
Yeah, and there are books like, for instance, the Tom Holland's books on Rome. Like, you can have a book that's well researched and still very engaging, but this one just a lot of conjecture and just also it just was a very broad overview. I think I would be like Genghis Khan's a very interesting figure to read about. I think I would be more interested in reading about a little more isolated, like, biography on Genghis Khan. This one was just very broad, and it's not a long book, so it's covering a huge topic in a pretty quick, succinct amount of time, and just wasn't quite there for me. It's a good book if you wanted to know about Genghis Khan. This is the one I'd recommend because it's the only one I've read, but it's not the best. Lincoln in Private. Okay, this one is by Ronald C. White. He's one of my favorite authors. It's not S tier, but it is an A tier. So this is essentially just a look at Lincoln. It's only like a 300-page book, but it's a look at Lincoln only through his a few personal letters and then some notes that were found like fairly recently in the grand scheme of, Civil War history. Some of this stuff was discovered fairly recently. Just little notes and scribbles he had, journal entries, that kind of stuff. And it heavily covers his evolution on his thoughts about slavery, which is a really important aspect of his life, because he really didn't start out as the champion of abolition that he may be seen as, but he did turn into that. He turned into someone who abhorred slavery and wanted nothing but to be rid of it. There's a good movie called Lincoln that's on another book called Team of Rivals that's all about this. You should check it out if you haven't seen it. It stars Daniel Day-Lewis, great actor. But Lincoln in Private is probably a mid-level A. I think I'd probably just have it here after A Man of Iron.
All right.
Napoleon. Now, I just finished this. You're almost done. This book's really good, man. I'm going to be honest. I think this is an S tier book.
I like it a lot. I like it more than any of the books that I've read this year. It's definitely the one I like the most.
As far as nonfiction
Sadly,
history?
Yeah, for sure. And I've audibled almost all of this. I've only read like 2 chapters, and it's still been super good. Very engaging, very interesting. I'll tell you what's not S tier, though, and that's the movie. And that's what's such a tragedy. Because visually it's it's awesome just because all the technology we have today, and then just you can tell they put a bunch of money into it, but man, the movie sucks. But yeah, the book has the book is great. Napoleon's just such an interesting guy, and I just feel like as Americans you just don't learn about him a lot in our schooling system with what we focus on in history. And I don't know, he's just a very, very interesting, very influential, and I feel like he's just not characterized in the right way. At least, to the common man.
Yeah.
Obviously, history buffs know, but, the common man, I feel like, just doesn't understand, what he was really about.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just there's so much information, but I never got bored reading this book. I never got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready for the next subject to come up or whatever. Everything from the politics, obviously the military stuff and all the battles that you get to experience in this book, but just all the personal stuff is just written so well, man. And Napoleon is a fascinating figure in history. If he had made a few decisions a little bit differently, we could be living in a much different world today, a much different world. Yeah. And so it's just, he's one of the most powerful people to ever live. He always wanted to be remembered amongst the Julius Caesar and Alexander Greats of history, and honestly, he is at this point. He set out to do that, and he is remembered that way, not only for his military prowess, but just, the way he revolutionized France, at the end of the revolution, essentially. Just a crazy life. So, yeah, Napoleon by Andrew Roberts is S tier for me. Next up is A Line in the Sand. This is you. I did not read this.
This is a good book. I'd put it just above Abyss or low A. Probably going to be the lowest of the A's. This book just matters, especially right now, but just to give people some context, it's A Line in the Sand, and it's a book that gives a lot of perspective. It goes back and outlines it mainly focuses on France and Great Britain and how they divide up the Middle East. After it goes in a little bit during and before World War One, and then obviously after World War Two is when lots of stuff gets diced up. But anyway, it's a very it's a very interesting book just because you gain a lot of insight that like applies to today and like seeing how certain things are going on right now in the Middle East, but then also just how those countries got where they are now. Because I mean, dude, it's just crazy to think that a lot of those countries haven't even been around for 100 years, like most of them. So they're still only like 80 years old, and that's just crazy to think about when you just hear all these things on the news and stuff. But anyway, I liked it. It was really good. It's not a very long book, but it's definitely worth reading. It gives you, I would say, it gives a lot of perspective on what's going on.
Yeah, definitely a very relevant read, I would think. Again, I haven't read it, but I would assume. Okay, cool. So, we're doing pretty good. A little over halfway through here, and we read some pretty good books this year so far. Next up is Never Call Me a Hero. Now, this is about a bomber pilot during World War II that I read. This is this an autobiography? I'm pretty sure it was. I read this like very beginning of the year. This was good. I would say it's somewhere in here on the B list. Like, it's just not, I mean, it's, if I remember correctly, it is an autobiography. So it's written by, the guy who's not, he's not an author. He's not a trained author. So he obviously had help, as anyone in that situation does, and has somebody editing, but it's still like, it's really good though. I would still put it, I'm actually probably gonna have to put it low B, because Frederick Douglass by David Blight's just way too well researched of a book for it to not be better. So I'm gonna put Never Call Me a Hero low B, but I would say this is a book that if someone's like not a heavy reader, wants to read a really inspiring story about a war hero, this is probably the first one that would come to mind, because it is a crazy story, man. You read this and you're thinking, bro, who would I have been in World War II? Because I don't see myself having the cojones the size of this guy. So it's a very inspiring read. Next up is Countdown to Pearl Harbor, the 12 Days Leading Up to the Attack by Steve Twomey. This is a pretty good book. Yeah, this one's probably in the same boat. Like, it's good. It's pretty intense, like just the build up. You can feel the tension leading up to Pearl Harbor, and I would say it's better than Never Call Me a Hero. But I'm gonna go ahead and just assume that both of these are better than Colditz because of how low Ben McIntyre was for me this year.
Oh god!
So yeah, I'm gonna say that's another
Poor
B. Next up for me, dude, is The Silk Roads by Frank Camperton something. Dude, this is one of the most disappointing, frustrating reads of my life. So this is a low D, like very bottom of the list. I will not allow another book to be put lower than this. Yeah, it's thick, man. And I read the whole daggum thing, and not at any point did I feel like excited or engaged. I barely even remember this book, man. It's just, and this book's really popular and has really high ratings.
It is. My dad has this book. I see it all the time.
Dude, I hated this book. I'm not going to lie. I kind of want to make an F tier just for this book. I could not, whatever the opposite of recommend is, enough on this one, because it just feels like this guy's, and man, I'm not a writer, so this sounds like really, like it's a really uneducated thing of me to say this, but it just feels like this guy just wants you to think he's smart or something, because it does no service to the story that you're trying to read. It does no service to the history that you're trying to learn about. It just feels like this guy's just dumping every name and place he's ever heard of in his life on you. And it's just not good, man. It's just not good. So, sorry, I'm going to step off that box real quick. Next, we have Scars and Stripes by Tim Kennedy. This one's you.
Yeah, this is an autobiography. I audibled this. This is more of a, it definitely gives insight into, like, what goes on in the military. He's a former Army Ranger and then also a UFC fighter, so he gives kind of some context into the early days of the UFC and stuff like that. I mean, this guy's just a savage, honestly. This is more of like a, I listened to this one after I did David Goggins' book, and I mean, I liked it. It's definitely, if you're looking for motivation and you want to like believe in America again, this is definitely one of those books, because he's just, I mean, built different is what I would say. But he writes it in a way to where it's the classic, he is built different, but then he acts like you also can be built different, you know? It's that encouraging when it's like can I kill people with my bare hands? I just don't know, Tim, if I can do that. This book was for sure better than Colditz. But I mean, it is what it is. It's an autobiography, like you said. I mean, it's just, it's very much about his life. It's very, I would say, biased. And there's a lot of things to like learn from it, but it's really not hard to see like where his political affiliations lie when like listening to this book. But I still liked it and gained some insight from it. Especially, I don't know much about like the modern military like today. So it was just interesting, him talking about how he got through like just the levels in Army Ranger. I guess like the training and like the tests that they have to pass just to make it in. So I mean, it was good. Definitely. I guess he's most popular for the UFC. So
right,
if you're into the UFC, I mean, this is definitely an interesting. Like you would like this book as like an audible for sure, just because he reads it as well. So it's kind of like a cool
that's cool
deal.
Yeah, I mean, I love the UFC, so that alone is enough. And the fact that he was also
trained with Chuck
badass
Liddell like
military
early in the days. So anyway,
which Chuck Liddell is like, I mean, one of the OGs of UFC. Yeah. So that's pretty sick.
You would actually, now that I'm really thinking about it, he like, because it's like half about the military, half about the UFC in his training. You would really like a lot of the UFC stuff just because, I mean, it's that early day stuff. And dude, just some of the stuff they did is insane. I mean, I'm sure some of the stuff they still do is insane, but I mean, anyway.
Yeah. All right, sick. Next up in the final stretch here-ish, we have The Soul of America by John Meacham. John Meacham's become one of my favorite authors, and this is a really cool book. So this is a short one. Essentially, he wrote it around the time of an election recently. I can't remember if it was... I think it was Trump, when Trump won. So I think it was around that, and he's really not... This book isn't about who you should vote for or what this guy thinks. And it really wasn't... It wasn't a commentary or referendum on Trump or anything like that either. I don't want to give the wrong idea. It was just given how tense and polarizing that time period was in American politics and society. It was a very fitting book. So he essentially takes a look at, like, I think 8 different presidencies and just takes different aspects of them to show. He's basically writing a book to present to the average American, hey, this is what the presidency has been throughout history. This is what it's been at its height, of the guys that we remember as like the goats of the presidency. This is what made them that. This is how they navigate these certain situations. And so it's kind of just, it's a cool book that honestly I think would be a good practice for all Americans to read right before they go vote every 4 years, because it just reminds you of the purpose of the presidency and the importance of it. And it's also just a really good read. Like, it's a very succinct, like, just fun read on a handful of presidents that really did a great job. And I really enjoyed it. So I would probably, I'd probably have it right after Collapse, because Collapse is still just, I mean, Collapse blew my mind. So, I'm going to put it right there. Next up, we have another one.
To be honest with you, that book, sorry, I have no, like, actual thoughts about this book because I didn't read it, but that cover's horrendous, dude. That's one of the worst covers I've seen. The one you just did, The Soul of America.
Well, I don't know if you can really tell, but that's like a painting down there on the bottom.
Regardless, I don't like how that book's designed at all.
I mean, that's fair enough. So, fair enough.
I don't know. And some of them, like, it just, I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Every time I've seen it, because we've done another video where you recommended this book, so I know it's a really good book. It's just, I feel like it sucks when a really good book has a horrible cover, because then it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it, but I can see why you don't like it. Next up is another one by John Meacham that I read this year on Thomas Jefferson. It's called Thomas Jefferson, The Art of Power, and this is for sure S tier. I don't know where it goes on S tier just yet. I'll have to think about it for just a minute, but this is an amazing book. John Meacham is just really freaking great. And Thomas Jefferson is a fascinating figure to read about. So we have a full review on this one on the channel as well. Actually, all of these we do except a handful. I wouldn't say all of them. At least half of these we do. Right? No, probably not, actually. No, not even half of them. We've only got videos on
2.
1. We've got a couple on Napoleon. We'll have more. So that's 3. Oh, wow.
I mean,
4,
I think you did that Pearl Harbor one and Genghis
5,
Khan But
yeah, I'm sorry. So we
have videos where we talk
total.
about these a little bit, like as far as recommendations. But
yeah. So never mind on that. Just ixnay that. Next up, we've got Vicksburg, the campaign, Grant's campaign that broke the Confederacy by Donald L. Miller, and this is another S tier. This book is so freaking good, man. It's just a very well researched and engaging, entertaining story of the entire campaign, and this is one of the ones that Grant's very well remembered for. And if you've watched any history videos we've done on this channel, you've probably heard me say that Grant is one of, if not my very favorite figure to read about in history, especially American history. And so it's right up my alley to begin with. And I don't know where to put these yet, so I'm going to think about it more. The Wager, the last one on our list, you and I, this is the only one on the list that both you and I read. Where do we think The Wager goes? Oh, and Napoleon, sorry.
That felt personal.
My B.
I'm going to say what I think, and then I'm curious to see what you think. So do you have like what you think already before I say this?
Yeah.
Like in your mind? Okay. Yeah. This is not better than Abyss for me, and it is better than Colditz. So Scars and Stripes, it's really tough to say because it's just a different story. I think just what it took. I mean, this is such a long time ago, and so the way he has, I mean, even any information on this, I feel like I appreciate more than Scars and Stripes, if that makes sense. Yeah. But then I haven't read those three there, like in between. So I would, like, if I didn't have your three that you've read, I'm putting it right below Abyss.
Okay. Yeah, I would put it. I'm going to put it right after Frederick Douglass. I would say it's better than those two World War II ones. So yeah, that's that. I think mid B is good. And yeah, this one we both read. So just to clarify, if you're interested in seeing any full reviews that we've done, the ones that we do have are going to be John Adams, Napoleon, The Art of Power, Thomas Jefferson, and then The Wager. And then I've also got little short ones on Genghis Khan and the Pearl Harbor books. So if you're interested, check those out. But this is our list. So S tier, it's so tough to say what is actually better. Dude, Napoleon is so good. Napoleon might be better than both of these in my opinion. It really might be. And there's a lot of recency bias there, so it's just so
Napoleon's just so cool, dude.
Yeah, it's just such a fun,
such a cool guy.
The military aspect of it.
If we're we need to do a tier list of historical figures.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Just solely based off what we think. Jamie, write that down.
Write that down, Jamie. So this is where I think I would match it up is Napoleon, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and then Vicksburg for the S tier list. A tier. Oh man, Band of Brothers actually is better than that. So is Man of Iron.
Okay, the cover, dude. I'm telling you, you're starting to look at
the cover's really starting to mess it up.
Man of Iron cover's fire.
Do you feel comfortable with? I mean, I know you've not read any of these, but I mean, do you have an argument for a line in the sand being higher?
No.
Okay, fair enough. Down to the B tier, we're starting off with Abyss, Frederick Douglass, The Wager, Pearl Harbor, Never Call Me a Hero, Scars and Stripes, and Colditz.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm fine with where this is at.
Because Abyss is very close for me to be an A.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's not, but it's close.
Okay. C tier, the rest of these are mine. I mean, I think these are pretty interchangeable, honestly, and this D tier is definitely right. Neither one of these are good, but So Crows is definitely the worst of the bunch. So that's where we're at. That is our 2023 nonfiction tier list for all the books that we read here at It's Lit Book Reviews. Again, for both this one and the fantasy one that you will see as far as the fantasy tier list, we started this channel. We didn't start recording videos until, July? Not even then.
Yeah.
August?
I mean, yeah.
Somewhere around there. So we didn't even get a half a year, as far as, actually reviewing these books, but you can at least see all the books that we did read. And that's 2023 wrapped up. leave a comment on what you think of any of these books that you have read, if you have any opinions on where we place them on the tier list. And then if you've got any recommendation based on what you're seeing on this, any book recommendations for us to read in 2024, let us know. Like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on podcasts, go ahead and do the same. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.